Hey, lesson 3 in APIs, where we take data from an API, which is in JSON format, and we add it to some HTML. The learning objectives for today are that the students has acquired the skill needed to apply key tools and data to optimize digital media production, which means that you acquire some skill to use this tool, which is an API, and the data you get from it to do something amazing in your media production. You shouldn't have read anything for today. We're off, no more slides, just this one telling you to grab a file from Canvas and unpack it somewhere on your hard drive where you'll want to keep the files. Open index.html in the browser and make sure that you have the entire folder opened in Visual Studio Code, and then open the script.js file. You can do that, and you can pause the video and do that. Okay, let's do some code. We'll start off by setting a variable called showItemAmount. That is the base of figuring out how many items we want to show when we get our search results. So let's do that. Let's show item amount. Set that be equal to 5 because that's our default. And then we want to init search-tool, which means that we want our buttons and the inputs, etc., in our search tool to react to events. And this is just a call for it, so we want to start it up, and then we want to create the function itself. So we've got a function in its search tool now, and first of all we're declaring and initializing this variable showItemAmount. We set it to 5, so it's 5 items that we want to show, and we call on initSearchTool, which is a function that we are building down here. Step 1 in the search tool is to have the button to react to a click. So when we click on our button here, which is this one, then we want it to do a search. So let's find that button, document, query, select, and that's not the input. The button is called search button. So we'll find that ID and we'll add an event listener to it. And event listeners take 2 parameters. The first one is the event itself, which in this case is a click. That's the type of event. And then what to do, which in this case is a function. We want it to do some code. And the code we want it to do is do search. Yeah. Let's see if that works. So if I click here, doSearch is not defined, so that's good. So let's go ahead and create the doSearch function, just a dummy and empty function that just console logs doSearch. Let's reload, and doSearch shows up in the console, so we're good. Alright, this could be done a bit more simple, because if you notice that we're calling on we're putting a function inside here. Well, the only thing we do inside of that function is actually calling another function. So I'm guessing we could do something like this. Let's see what happens. Computer says no. Maybe if we delete this part. Yeah. So when we call upon a function where there's supposed to be a function in these parameters, we don't add the parentheses. So we can actually just do search like this. But if you want to add more code than just one function, then this way is the way to go. And I'll leave it like this. So to make it more simple, because we need to do this a couple of times and we need to add some more code and just do search for one of these. So I'll leave it like this. Yes, the next thing we need to do is we need to listen for events where we type here, and if it's an enter, if I press enter, I wanted to do a search as well. So how do we figure out if I have pressed enter? That's the big question here. Let's start out by setting up the event. So we'll set up an document event query selector, and we'll listen for this part, and we're in search input. So in search input we'll add an event listener, and we want it to listen for key up. That's when we release a key, and we want that to run a function. And in this case, we're listening for something inside of the event that happens. So we can add event as a parameter in the function call here. And then we can use that inside of the function. So if I write console log event, we should see something about the event that has happened in the console when I do something here. So it was when I release a key inside of this input field. So I'm pressing H now. There we go. So we've got a keyboard event. Key H, code, key H, location, yada yada yada. Something in here called key code 72. So what happens when I press enter? Let's see. We've got another keyboard event down here. Enter. And it says key code 13. So let's see if we can use that key code there. Let's just output the key code of the event and see what happens. 65, if I press enter, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13. Okay, so we're listening for 13. So we can say if event key code is equal to 13, then we want to do a search, because then the user has pressed enter. So we'll do search. There we go. I'll remove the console log. And now we have an event listener in the input field that listens for the user pressing and releasing the enter key. And when the user does that, then we get a new search. Or we call the doSearch function. Yes. Okay, we've got on the page we've got these amount of results that we can choose between, and whenever the user switches between these, we wanted to do a new search, because let's say I search for something and I get 5 results and I'm not happy with it, then I want to turn up the amount of results that it's showing right away. So if we do a research, a new search with a new amount of results, but searching for the same word, then we should be good. So let's just activate doSearch again after we switch this around. So let's see, document query selector, and what we're looking for is this one. Select ID is equal to result amount selector. I should stop switching between them like that. And we want to add an event listener to it. And in this case, we're not listening for click or key up, we're listening for change, because as soon as it changes, we want it to do something. And what we want it to do is to use this function, and this function should grab the value from the item that we have selected in the drop-down. So how can we do that? Well, we can since we've added an event listener to an element in the HTML, the element itself has become available inside of our JavaScript. So if I console log the keyword this, it will show me the element that has been changed, that the event listener is chained to. So let's see what happens if I change this. Yes, it shows me the select ID and all of the values that are available. So what I can do is it's a value that I'm looking for. So we can say this dot value and see what happens. If I choose a new one, it just shows me the number, which is the value from the drop down, from the select. So we can use this to change our show item amount from up here. So let's do that. Show item amount. Let's set that to be equal to this dot value. So now we have changed the value of show item amount. So when we use show item amount later on, when we do our search and show the results, then it has changed to whatever we selected down here. We of course wanted to do another search here, so let's call on that function doSearch. All right, so now we should have a doSearch whenever we press click on the search button, whenever we press enter in the input field, and whenever we change the value of the show item amount. So let's see if that happens. Let me try typing something, nothing, and then enter. We got a doSearch. I'll click on search in wiki. We got a doSearch. If I press enter while search in wiki is focused, then I still get a doSearch, because that's the same as clicking it. If I change this, I'll get a new doSearch, which is fine. Alright, good. We're off. So I will let you pause the video and type this in, and remember to check that everything works. You should get a doSearch every time you do one of the three things. Let's just do it in here instead. We'll create a constant because we need to grab the search term from the input field. So we need that text that is inside of that input field, and we need to put that inside of a variable. So we'll create a constant called search term and set that to be equal to the value of search input. So if we find document query selector search input, what we need from there is the value, and let's try to console log that. And see what happens. Alright. So, okay. As you can see, if I add a lot of space before or after, that space shows up in the variable as well. So I want to remove all of those extra spaces. And you can do this by adding trim. So .trim. And that's a method. So That's a string manipulation method that we can use. Trim will cut off any space before or after. Not in between words, but before or after the whole thing, at the beginning and at the end of the string. Let's see if that works out here. I'll do a lot of spaces, type something, a lot of spaces, and press enter. As you can see, that's only the letters, so that's good. Maybe we would want it to actually update our input field as well. So that would kind of be nice if we could just update document query selector value, set that to be equal to search term, because now we're sure that we are cutting away all of the spaces, which is nice. Let's see what happens. So I'll add a lot of spaces, type something, a lot of spaces, press enter, and hey presto, we got the search term without spaces up here. Good. So that's just to clean up the input for the user. Then we can say if we don't want to search on nothing, search after nothing, so we'll say if search term is different from an empty string, then we'll do something. So we can say if search term is different from an empty string, then our if sentence run. So we don't want to search if there's nothing there. And the first thing we'll do is, you remember the spinner that was there. Let's turn that thing on. And the easy way to do that is to have a function where we can turn it off and on with that. And to begin with, we'll just call on that function, and then we'll write it later. I'm calling the setSpinner function and setting it to true. The idea is that true is a parameter that I sent with the function, and if I sent true, then it should turn the spinner on. If I sent false, then it should turn the spinner off. So we'll write that function in a short while. Then we want it to remove any results that were there before. So let's assume that we did a search previously and we want to clear those results. So let's do that, results clear. And then we want to get our data from Wikipedia. So we can say get DataWiki search term, which is also a function that doesn't exist yet. So these three functions don't exist yet, so we should, just to be orderly about this, we can create these three empty functions. So that we don't get an error when this runs. But if such setSpinner, yes, alright. So let's see if there are any errors for now. There shouldn't be. Nope, no errors, no errors, no errors. Good. So yeah, type in this bit, pause the video and type in this bit, and check if there are any errors. Okay, so let's first of all let's enable this spinner thingy. We say setSpinner, and then we added a parameter, in this case true. Let's call that variable, that parameter in the function. Let's call that is active, which means basically should we set it to turn it on or off again. And if okay, let's first of all let's look at the here. We need to find this element and remove the display none on it if we wanted to set to active. So what we can do is we'll start by finding the element. So we'll set a constant document query selector. What did I screw up here? I need to add a variable name, right? Yes, I need to. Spinner is equal to, there we go, document query selector, and we're looking for this one, search spinner. So now that element is put inside of the spinner variable, so we can do stuff with it. First of all, we need to know, should we turn it on or off? So let's ask if it is active. If that is true, then let's turn it on. So we'll take the element spinner and go look at the class list in there, and we'll add a class called active to it. So that's a CSS class that we add to the class attribute on the element with the search spinner ID, right? If it isn't true, if isActive is not true, then maybe we should turn it off. So let's do this. So we'll look at spinner, and we'll go for the class list again, and we'll remove active instead. So this should cause the spinner to show up as soon as we do a search, because we're turning it on right here. As long as the search term is different from nothing, then we should turn it on. Let's try reloading. If I search for nothing, if I search for space, if I search for a lot of spaces, nothing happens. But as soon as I search for anything, then our spinner shows up. And of course, we just want to turn the spinner off again when our API call is complete. So when our call to Wikipedia is complete and we've got our answer, we'll just turn it off again. Okay, type setSpinner in and make sure that it works. Try sending in a search, which doesn't work for now, but try that and see that the spinner shows up. If it doesn't work, make sure to check the console and see what errors are in there. Okay. Then we have resultsClear. This is basically just looking at, if we look at our HTML, we've got this search results div where we want to put all of our results. Before we add new results, we want to clear this every time. So we'll just take this div and do an inner HTML and set that to be equal to an empty string. So we'll find it, document query select, and we'll find search results, and we will set inner HTML to be equal to an empty string. That means that we just empty out whatever is inside of that div whenever we call the function resultsClear. So if I write resultsClear anywhere in my code, it'll just empty out that div. There is no way of testing that right now, but what we could do is I could type something in here. That should mean that this shows up right now in my browser when I refresh it, and as soon as I do the search, it should disappear. So let's see. There it shows up. Type something, do the search, and it disappears. So that's good. You can type this in and test it in the same way. Okay, so we've got setSpinner, we've got resultsClear. We need to get some data from the Wikipedia, and well, we'll use the same procedure as we did for the last lesson. So we'll start out by creating a constant HTTP and set that to be equal to a new XML HTTP request. And we'll do an onReady stage for that. onReady state change for that. Set that to be equal to a function, and that function is supposed to be checking if this ready state is equal to fore and this status is equal to 200. Then again, the server has phoned back that everything is ready at the server side, so everything is good to be sent, and the browser is saying, okay, I received the file 200. And then now let's do something new called try catch, where we try to see if we can execute some code, and if we can't, well, then we get the possibility to do something else. So let's see what happens here. We do a try, and we do a catch, where there is an error object that we can use, and in case whatever code we try to execute inside of try here doesn't work, then catch will grab it and give us an error that we can use, and the error is this. So we can do that. Let's see. Yeah, we'll use a function called errorMessage for this, and we'll create that later. errorMessage. And we can write stuff in here like let's use Axangavs. Error passing JSON, and then we can write some error text, and we'll give it a class name so that it looks different. Error is MSG for message, and yeah, end that span, and inside of this we will add the error. So $, curly brackets, error. Okay, but what is it that could error? Well, we have, if we get data back, I'll say let data be equal to, here we go, we want to pass the response text as a JSON object, and if that fails, well, that will give us the error message instead. And let's see, and this will be this response text. And we want to output the result here. So let's we'll call yet another function that we haven't created yet, output result, and we will hand the data variable to that function as a parameter. Alright, so let's just create these two functions so that we don't forget. errorMessage, and the other one was outputResult. These two, right? So now we don't get an error as long as if we try to execute this code. But we haven't sent this yet, so we need to do something with it. And I want to add something else. I want to check on the ready state and see if we actually get an error, if the file doesn't exist or something like that. And we can do this by adding another if sentence here. If this ready state is equal to fore and this status is larger than 400, then we have a file error in the file transfer, which we can then give an error of. So let's see, let's do an error message, and the error message in this case should be an error has occurred getting while getting the data. Please try again later. Alright. So now on ready state change we either try to output the result, or we get an error if we can't pass it, or we get an error if the status is above 400. After the onReady state change, we need to put the address on the outside of the envelope and tell us what we want to do with this, and then we need to send it. So let's see. Up here we got the address for the Wikipedia page that we should use, the URL. Yes. So down here, after onReady state change, we can collapse this if that helps. We need the xhttp.open here, and we'll be using the get method, and the URL is somewhat of a doozy, so let's just add the true here at the end before we start with the rest. Luckily we can do line changes here, or do new lines if we want to. So let's just do that and use arcs and graphs. And then we can do our very long URL here. And what we need to change inside of here is we need to use the search term and do the, let's see, I'll move my face here. SR limit is the search result limits, so that should be our variable from up here. That should be show item amount, that's in there. So let's swap out SR limit. We can use that by using $ and curly brackets and write show item amount in there. And we need a search term which goes at the end here, so let's use $ and search term there. Let me zoom out a bit. So this is what we got here. This can go in one single line if you want to, but you are allowed to break this up, but you cannot do any line changes as far as I know inside of the URL string. Alright, so we've got our open method on now, so now we need to send it. So xhttp.send, and we should be good to go. So yeah, so we'll be calling output result with data if this works. Let's just see if there are any errors for now. But let's have this grab the data and then console log the data. And error message, we won't do anything with that right now, but we'll fix that in a second. So let's see what happens here. Test, enter. Search term is not defined. Alright. Script line 71. doSearch. Yeah, of course. We're calling getDataWiki, and we're not passing the parameter in the definition of our function. So we need to add search term here. Sorry, search term here. So we get search term here, which we use down here. Okay. Let's try this again. All right. Batch complete. Query, search, we get an amount of objects back here, so that's fine. What happens if we do this? We get a new object, 25. So we should have 25 objects here in query. Yes, we do. Alright, seems to work. Fine. So type this in and test by looking at the console log and see if you get any output that matches the amount of search that you do, the amount of search result items that you want to show. Right, pause now and do that. Okay, let's fix our error message function here. The error message receives a string, as we can see here when we call it, and that string, well, let's just call that message here. So now we have message, the parameter, as a variable that we can use inside of it. And what we want to do is we want to present the error message where the search results would be. So first of all, we need to turn off the spinner because the spinner is turned on right now. So we go setSpinner and say false, because it's that easy now. And after we've done that, we find the element that we want to write in, document query selector, and that element is called search result. Yep. And we want to change the inner HTML of that element. Set that to be equal to, and we use our arcs graphs again. And let's see, we do a p class be equal to error msg, error message. Then we add message in $ curly brackets, and we end this with a closing p tag. Yeah, we can do this in one line, so let's do that. Good. Alright, so now we've got an error message on document. That won't work. Document. Wonder why it didn't tell me there was an error. Document. Yeah, I'm good. Document query selector search results inner HTML is equal to p class error message p end of the start tag, the message variable, and then a p tag end. Alright, we should be good with that one. Type that in now, and we can test it. We can do an error message testing 1, 2, 3. So we should now get yes. All right. So that function works. You can do this and then remove the error message test afterwards. But I'll leave this here for now and type this in, see that it works, and then afterwards remove the error message test. Okay, so we need to output our result, and to do that, let's just keep console log here. We might need it. We want to first of all turn off the spinner again, so set spinner false, and then we want to build our result HTML, and we'll do that by creating a constant, call it results, and set that to be equal to, and we use accent graphs again. And in here we need a div with the result count. We'll show how many results there are, and then we'll create a list of results. So we'll start off by creating a div, and that div should have an ID of result count. Count. It's important that we spell this correctly. It's got some CSS attached to it, and inside of here we want to add something from the data update. We have inside of the data update we have a query keyword, and that query keyword has a search info keyword, and that keyword has a total hits. So this should be the amount of articles that we found. So we can write that in our text, showing the first and then we'll add how many results we've found. So and we can do this we'll just use the show item amount here. So we'll just tell how many we're showing. So actually if we only found 3 articles, it still says 25 here if we selected 25, but never mind. You could do some programming checks on checking how many articles there are and making sure that it's not above, that you're not showing a number above the amount of total hits. All right, let's see if this works to begin with. There we go. So test. Nothing shows up because we're just building the constant result. We haven't actually outputted it yet, so maybe it's a good idea to do that. So let's do that first. Document query selector. Search results. That's the ID of the div we want to output it to. Inner HTML, set that to be equal to result. Okay, let's see if it works now. It should. Test. There we go. It's found 252,474 articles, showing the first 5. That's a lie for now, but so this should work like this for you. Pause the video, type this in, make sure that it works, and then we'll continue afterwards. Alright, so we need to list the results as well. We can't just show how many we found, because that's a pretty stupid search engine, or annoying in any case. So what we want to do is we want to have a list of our items afterwards, and we can do this by creating a function that we're calling directly from our constant result here. So if we call it listResults, we can add a parameter to it with the data.query.search, which is an array of the results. So we should be good there, and we can, if we start creating the listResults function down here, listResults will receive the results, and let's just console log those just to see if it works. So now this should actually, it doesn't render anything, but it makes listResults console log the results. Let's see if it works. Alright, this is of course not working because we are not using the parameter that we're adding here, so let's do that instead. So if we look at results, reload, then we should have, it's not searching because there's no word in there. There we go. So now we have an array of 5 items, or 10 items, or 25 items. Alright, so we can just loop through that array now. But if you just make sure that you're up to date with this, we don't need that one. You can pause the video now and make sure that you're up to date now. Okay, so after this, and we've tested, we should actually output something here. So we can do a variable that we start off with and make that empty to begin with. Let item list be equal to an empty string, and then we'll extend on the string. We'll loop through the different results that we've got now. So for let I be equal to 0, as long as I is lesser than item list length, keep going, and for each add 1. So yes, and so we don't have to write results square brackets I every time we do something. We'll create a new variable called, we can actually do it as a constant, where we say item, which is the current item when we do it like this. So results square brackets I. So now we've created a new variable with the one we're currently at, right? So we can say item list, add this to item list, and we'll use accent garbs again, and we'll just add an a tag with the class of article, because article, there we go. And we'll set a target. This is going well. Target equals underscore blank, so that we open up a result that we click on in a new tab. And we'll set an href to be equal to, and then we use, well, let's see what's actually inside of the inside of each of these articles. I still have one of these. So we can see there's a title, there's a page ID which we can use, because we need to when we access a article on Wikipedia, we can add a parameter called cur ID, CUR ID, and set that to be equal to the page ID, and then we'll find the right article. So let's try that. Set href to be equal to https : the English version wikipedia.org, and then we can actually set it to be cur ID and set that to be equal to $ curly brackets item.page ID. This should be a link to the article's page on Wikipedia. I'll create an end tag for the A, and then we want a header with the title of the article, and we want a preview of the article, so we'll do a p tag here that we put something in between. And in the h4 we want to add item title. That should be $ item.title. And let's see, we want the text down here, so we'll use item and then the snippet key from it. And yeah, I've added a break tag here just to add some space. I know we don't do that, but in this case we do. And then I want listResults to return all of this HTML. So we return the item list variable, which means that the result of the HTML should be put inside of the constant result right here, and then printed afterwards into the text. Let's see what happens. Nothing for now. Return item list. Is it not doing anything? Let's see. Console log is. Let's make sure this is reloaded. Search result count. Is this working at all? Let's see if we set item list to be equal to test. It writes test. Okay. So it has got something to do with what we're doing here. Maybe I should check my for loop. Let item list, and we're using item list again. We shouldn't be using item list here, right? We should be using the results. Here. Maybe that'll work. Okay, now we're good. Now we got something. So, and does our link work? Apparently it does. Alright, good stuff. Dawood Braben, maybe David Braben. Let's see, David Braben, CEO, blah 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 blah. Yeah, this guy. So, good stuff. It actually works. Maybe we would want to add a number next to the title here so that we know which article we're at. We can do this by going to the title here, and let's just add a parenthesis with the number in, right? So let's say if the first one was number 1, then it would look like this. Let's see what this looks like. Now it would write 1 next to them. Yeah. So let's add the current number, which is the same as I from our for loop. Let's try that. What happens then? And it starts with 0, so let's add 1 to all of them. So we can say I plus 1. Now it starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got a continuous count here. So that's pretty much it for now. Pause the video, type in listResults, and we're done. Wrapping up. Time for reflection. Use 5 minutes to discuss in your groups virtually. What you've learned, what was surprising, why, how can you use it for what you've learned in the lesson, in project work or professionally. And then take 2 minutes to write a couple of lines based on your group discussion. Remember to add the slides and the files, etc. to your work portfolio and the reflection that you just wrote. Alright. I'll talk to the ones of you who wants to talk afterwards. There'll be info on Canvas on how we communicate. So see you.